Hello and welcome back to The Hatch. I'm Rosie Murphy.
And I'm Sammy Roth, and this is the podcast where we talk about Lost.
We have reached Season 2, Episode 21. The title is simply a question mark.
Yes, makes it very difficult to save files on your computer related to this episode. We've got more from our interview this week with François Chau, who played Dr. Pierre Chang, who makes his return as Dr. Mark Wickmund this week, actually.
Let's jump right in. As we have every week for a number of episodes now, we start with our hot takes on question mark. Sammy, what is your hot take?
So I just wanted to point to a moment in this episode that I really loved from a sort of filmmaking perspective. When Locke and Echo go down into the Pearl Station and look around, there is a full 3 minutes of TV time where there is no dialogue.
Really?
I know, and I was watching it, and then suddenly I stopped and did this double take. Like, when was the last time either of them said anything? And no, from the moment the scene starts, when they pull open the door to the new hatch and go downstairs, and they walk around, and they, Locke turns the monitors on, and Echo, and they're examining the printouts, and it's like they're discovering what's in this place, and it's all in total silence for close to a full 180 seconds.
That's 3 minutes?
3 minutes.
Oh my goodness. I wasn't tracking, but I would have guessed that was a minute tops. That's amazing.
It is great television. And then what happens is ultimately Echo says, "John," and he holds up the orientation film, and then they play the Mark Wickmund video, and that's basically the end of the scene. But anyway, that's my hot take. It's awesome. That's
remarkable. I'm so glad you tracked the time on that.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Your turn.
Okay, so mine has to do with the flashback on this episode, which is that there's a moment when Richard Malkin, the psychic who admits here to being a fraud, there's a confrontation of sorts between him and Echo on his porch, and I might be reading too much into this, and I just want to know what you think. But I got this great sense of Echo kind of seeing himself in this man and feeling kind of like, well, I'm a fraud too, of sorts.
Oh, that's so interesting. That didn't occur to me.
I don't know if I'm sort of making that up or not based on what I know about Echo, but I came away with a bit of that sense, like unclear about whether or not Echo is at this point a true believer in what he's doing.
Yeah, I think he's not.
I'm inclined to agree.
But it's left open. I mean, I guess that raises a larger point about Echo's transformation, is that at least at this point in the show, we don't really have a good understanding of when he, transformed into the man of faith that he is today on the island.
Right. Well, and I think you could argue that it's quite gradual, because even in this flashback, which takes place over a matter of a couple of weeks, the man who comes to see him in the confessional is handing him a forged passport, presumably not to do priestly duties, right?
Yeah.
So we get the sense that he's still very much involved with his prior life.
Although he does, the Monsignor who assigns him this case, he does tell the guy, like, oh, this man is helping me arrange my travel to Los Angeles.
Right, but I think the Monsignor understands that he's going for, clerical reasons and not... I guess we don't know why Echo's going. I shouldn't assume.
Yeah, no, actually that was just a larger question I had about Echo this episode, like just that I think there's a lot of lack of clarity about what's really going on in his life at this point. Yeah. That's a whole other topic. I was on Echo's Wikipedia page, and there seemed to still be some gaps in our knowledge of his backstory and how he got to the different places he's going, but I think that your point is a good one. I could see that. It didn't occur to me, but I could see it.
Yeah, because I do think Echo has a sense when he listens to the tape from the man who performed the autopsy, he has a sense of like, oh, shit, this might be real. He seems very affected by that. And I think he, even the Monsignor says to him, like, part of the reason I'm sending you is that you're so skeptical. And we need that sort of skepticism when we're kind of vetting these things. But I think, and again, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I think you can make a case for Echo starts to believe, and that frightens him. In the flashback. Obviously, the island scenario is quite far removed.
He starts to believe, and that frightens him. Well, so one, I think you're probably right. Two, I think that helps answer a question that I had, which is, what is the point of this flashback? Because I don't know, I guess I was watching it and feeling like it was just, like I didn't really understand the connection between what was happening in the flashback where he's investigating this miracle and what's happening on the island where he's getting visions that he should push a button. But if the lesson of the flashback is that we're supposed to, see that he, and I think you're right, because I think we see it in that final sequence where Charlotte comes to him at the airport, the daughter, and he's clearly like freaked out by the possibility that really she did see Yemi in the afterlife.
Right. And she sort of knows too much, and he's saying, "Who put you up to this?"
Right. He doesn't want to believe. You're right.
Right.
But then when we see him on the island and Yemi comes to him in a dream, it's like he is so gung-ho, like, I am being sent a message, like, this is my destiny, I need to follow these signs. Like, we just see totally the transformation from the skepticism he had before and the fear of believing to wanting to believe. He really wants to believe.
To the point that he is, like, very deeply what a Christian would say is walking by faith, right? Like, they get to the plane and he says, "We will camp here and wait for further instructions."
Further instructions, by the way, later episode title.
Right.
Anyway.
But yeah, this idea of, like, I am walking I'm taking each step of this journey, and then, Yemi or my dreams or the island or whatever will tell me what to do.
Yeah, it's a remarkable amount of faith. And in case anyone's wondering, I think we've moved on from the hot takes at this point into the fuller episode discussion. But to me, one of the most remarkable moments in the whole episode was after, speaking of Echo's faith, is after they watched the video, which pretty much is like a definitive or seemingly definitive statement of, like, this thing that you care about is a total waste of time. Echo's reaction is, "I am being tested."
Yeah. And John is ready to throw in the towel. I mean, John, who's been this kind of paragon of faith, even though it's been shaken in the last 5 episodes or so, when he's unsure whether Henry really pushed it or not. But he says we're rats in a maze with no cheese, and this is meaningless, and we're being taken for fools.
The rats in a maze with no cheese thing, I just have to say, is reminding me of the mousetrap scene when Locke is selling the mousetrap game when he's a salesman. No, it's and what I think is so interesting about seeing Locke have that reaction is just that you sort of get the reversal of the man of science, man of faith dynamic here.
Yeah.
Where Echo is the man of science or man of faith clearly, and Locke is the man of science suddenly. And even the dialogue, there was the moment that really stood out to me in that Echo Locke conversation is where Echo says, and we are being tested, and Locke says tested in a really skeptical way, which there is exactly the same dialogue between Jack and Locke in Exodus, where when Jack is asking Locke about what were you doing, letting the monster drag you down that hole, Locke says, "I believe that I was being tested," and Jack says tested in exactly the same way that Locke does this episode. I'm sorry, did I just blow your mind?
You actually did. Woo! Because I was going to try to counter your point and say, like, well, is Locke really the man of science here, or is he really just the man of lost faith? Because it's not like he's offering this counterpoint, or he's not really acting as Echo's foil. Like, he wants, I think he wants to believe. And the fact that all of this, or that he's seeing that, all the work that they've been doing by pushing the button is seemingly meaningless, is a great betrayal rather than a confirmation of something or further proof of something. I mean, he seems to take it very personally. Like, like someone has betrayed him or like something's been taken from him, rather than, okay, well, if this is fake, what do I do next? Which I feel like would be the Jackian response here.
So that's a good counter, and I can't really argue with that. But for the sake of argument, I'll try.
Okay.
Which just, no, you're right. It's not an exact, like, Locke is now Jack situation.
Right, but I see what you're saying in that Locke has shifted out of being sort of the healer. What have we been calling Locke? The spirit guide. He's no longer the spirit guide here. Yeah.
No, but I do think there are at least the trappings of a man of science situation, because when you think about it, the thing that has set Locke down this path of skepticism, which is what it is skepticism, is that Henry tells him, "I didn't push the button," and that's kind of
right.
Locke trying to deal with a cold hard fact situation. Well, logically, if he didn't push the button and nothing happened, then that probably means it's meaningless. And then meanwhile, you've got Dr., quote unquote, Mark Wickmund telling him, "Oh, you're really part of a scientific experiment," which,
right.
So I don't know. I think there's, there are some elements here that are rational elements of Locke evaluating the evidence in front of him and deciding, gee, this actually means that it was all a lie. But no, clearly he still wants to believe. He can't.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I think Locke is trying to synthesize all this information. And it's perfectly understandable that he would feel so betrayed by this. Having been, number one button pusher all this time.
Oh, number one button pusher.
And then seeing, even, when Jack has that phenomenal confrontation with Desmond and says, did you ever think this was all a science experiment and somebody was just fucking with you? And Desmond says, every single day.
Oh, God, I forgot about that.
Remember that?
No, I totally forgot.
I don't recall whether or not Locke was present for that conversation.
No, but I mean, if that's how Desmond felt, now we're going to see him get to play that out in a couple weeks when he locks himself in there with Locke.
Right.
Oh, shit.
And now that sort of confirms, I guess, this deep suspicion that whether Locke has had it or not, maybe every button pusher has sort of had it. This sense that, I am almost, I mean, if we want to put it in parallel with what Echo's dealing with, like, I've received these instructions from this videotape in kind of this weird metaphysical / paranormal / fringe science kind of world. And I'm following them. And I have no way of knowing for sure whether or not this is real. And now they seem to get this proof, and Locke is ready to throw in the towel and say, fuck it, we were lied to, and this wasn't real. This was an experiment, and Echo is still willing to wait for further instructions. And it makes sense that Locke's faith would be shaken at some point. I mean, he can't be this paragon of supernatural strength forever, right? I wonder if you could make something of like his faith is shaken, his spiritual strength is shaken at the same moment when he's injured. And kind of his miracle from the island is threatened.
Oh, I totally agree with you. Those things have to be related.
I definitely think there might be a link there between John being, for a couple of episodes now, not having full use of his legs, which he's only had for a couple of months, and kind of being returned to his earthly state, and that happening to happen at the same time when his faith is shaken. I think there's something there.
That's a great observation. Do you have any hindsights?
No clear ones, really. Do you?
Just one, which is that I forgot how exciting it was to, find a new hatch.
Yeah, and there's this wonderful moment when they're opening the hatch, and it looks like John almost has this reconversion moment.
It does, because he wants to be the one to do it. Like, do you mind if I...
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really, is captivating.
And I was just thinking as I was watching this that, the reason I had forgotten the excitement of finding a new hatch is because eventually, the hatches just become so, normal and so
Every
sort
day.
of blasé. Yeah, there's so
Yeah.
many of them. Like, I remember in season 4, like by the time you get to the Tempest, when they introduced that new hatch for the one episode for the purpose of like, oh, this is where the poison gas is, and we need to go shut down the Tempest. It's like, okay, another hatch. Like, but this one at this point, it's like it's thrilling,
Right.
and
It's
and
still
I think
magical.
it really is magical. Like, oh gosh, there's another one of these things.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was fun.
Well, speaking of the hatch, um,
But yeah, speaking of our podcast,
yeah, I think now would be a great time to hear some further thoughts from François Chau.
it would, as we mentioned, he is the actor who played Dr. Pierre Chang, or as he's known in this episode, Dr. Mark Wickmund.
It goes by a number of other names as well throughout the series, but shares some additional thoughts with us.
I guess probably you never expected to be in this situation where you have a son and it's one of the other characters. Like, one of the questions I have about Pierre Chang is, you know, even though he's kind of a jerk, like, how much does he care about his son, his family? Like,
Right.
he sends them off the island, but he
Right.
also doesn't seem to want to relate to Miles that much. Like, what's your thinking on that relationship?
I think once, like I say, the way it's structured, it would be great to know all this stuff before you went along. The way the whole show is structured, and then like the way my character kind of develops,
Yeah.
it's sort of you don't like hindsight would be great. You know, you go, oh, this is happening, and then you get to a point where you go, oh, okay, I sort of get it now, but now it's like it's a little too late to go back and go, oh yeah, this is why this is this and this is this. The relationship that developed, I thought was it's almost like, because by the end, and both Ken and I kind of were on the same track as once it was really set that, oh yes, you are my son, and you know, here you are. It wasn't like, oh my God, you know, I haven't seen you in years, and let's hug it out kind of thing. It was more of a, oh, it's great to see you, but there's a big time in between, and it's, you know, it's kind of awkward.
Yeah.
I think if the series had gone on, or if we had gotten more stuff to do or something, it might have been a little different. But at the point where it was a little distance between them.
Yeah, I rewatched that scene the other day, and I think the first thing after you figure out that he's really your son
Right.
is you move on to like, okay, but how are we going to deal with the
Right,
the
right.
time travel and the incident and the button and all those
Right,
things? Yeah.
right. Yeah, because
Amazing.
by that time, I don't think Chang's character, you know, you kind of developed that he wasn't really a warm, kind of
Fuzzy kind
kind of guy.
No.
Even if you find out, oh my God, you're my son, it's not, wow, okay, now what do I do? You know, the fact is, this is true, but it's not like, oh, let's drop everything and deal with this. It's just, okay, this is going on, so let's deal with this. But
Yeah.
This is sort of there, you know, all around this kind of thing.
I think the most personal detail we ever got about Dr. Chang was that he likes country music. I think, which for some reason everyone thought was like the greatest thing.
It was. That was sort of the beginning of like the relationship, right?
Yeah.
They're driving in the van with Chang and Miles and Hurley, and you know, I guess making conversation, and you don't expect Chang to come out to volunteer that information.
Definitely not.
So yeah, that's sort of showing the kind of other side of Pierre Chang that you wouldn't think of. You know, when there's the scene where Miles is watching his dad playing with him as a baby.
Oh yeah.
Right? You go, oh. Yeah, he's kind of a normal guy with a baby. He's not like, you know...
Well, it's one of those things. It made me wish that we had a little more time to get to know him, because I'm sure he wasn't, you know, just a jerk to everyone all the time.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, right, the first time you see him at the beginning of season 5, he gets up and he's with the baby and his wife's in bed, and it's like he must be like a nice guy beneath there somewhere. I hope. I also, sort of the last big topic I want to ask you about, the DHARMA Initiative.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, they supposedly... I mean, you say this in one of the videos, I think, that Dharma, it's, it's all about it bettering humankind
Right.
and world peace and all
Right.
of these sort of high ideals.
Right.
But they, they also did some weird and bad kind of shit.
Yeah, I think the way they go about doing bettering humankind is like, oh, that's just, we'll torture these people, but that's for the good of
Right.
humankind kind of thing. And you go, okay, but it's like I played a lot of bad guys.
Oh yeah.
Mostly bad guys.
Okay.
And you can never, a bad guy never thinks, "Oh, I'm the bad guy. I gotta act, evil." Yeah, we're always going. There's a reason. You don't think of yourself as doing something bad. I don't think Pierre Chang thought of himself as, "Oh, I'm this mad scientist doing these bad things."
You think he's really bought into bettering,
Yeah,
humankind.
I think he's doing it. The whole, or you can fool yourself by saying, "Hey, the reason I'm doing this is for the good of mankind," even though there's that mentality of, "Hey, it takes a certain strength to make the harsh decisions, or to be strong and to be whatever." That's how you rationalize it, and I think that's unfortunately that's all too true
in real life.
in real life.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's it's so interesting to me that the Dharma Initiative gets wiped out.
Right.
And that's clearly not good either, but there's an argument that I've heard, fans have is, did they deserve it or not? Right. And I don't know. I presume Dr. Chang probably, got killed in the purge, although you never really find out.
Yeah, you never really find out. The last you see of him, he's running off before
before the incident.
Yeah,
explosion
right.
Yeah.
So I don't know how fast he can run, but I don't know if it's that, if he's still on that island, presumably he's gone with the rest, but it's lost, so you never know.
Yeah. What's your ideal ending for the character? If he doesn't die in the purge, what's the ending for you?
I always thought that he escapes and he goes back into the mainland, opens a successful chain of pseudo-Chinese food restaurant called P.F. Chang. Right?
I love it.
So you go, oh yeah, there you go.
You just solved another mystery in life, which is where did P.F. Chang's come from?
That's it.
I appreciate it. Oh, that would be such a good place to end the interview, but there are one or two more things I want to ask you. I ask everyone we interview this question. So you got to act in the finale, by the way, right? You came back for a cameo, I think.
Well, let's see. I'm trying to remember, because the last season, the one side was like the regular. I don't know,
on the island, normal
on the
timeline.
island, and then the other side where
Yeah.
I guess this was their purgatory or whatever they were living through.
There are different theories. If
Right,
you know what it represents.
Right. So in that side, I was, I think Miles and was a cop.
Yeah, and Miles and Sawyer were cops,
and I was the head of the museum or something.
Right, and I think you spoke briefly at like the charity concert.
Right.
So, but I was just going to ask you, what was your take? What did you think of the finale? Because it's very divisive.
Yeah, I have had friends of mine who said, oh, I thought it was great, and other friends who called me up afterwards and said, damn you, I just wasted 6 years of my life.
As if it was your fault.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it was fine. I thought I don't think there was any way that they could have come up with something that would have just pleased everyone. I think the fans who are really into every little detail of information and why is this, what does this mean and what does this mean and why didn't, we get explanation about that. I think those are the ones who are most disappointed because you get little tidbits of stuff, but for the most part, it's, it's like they left a lot of stuff hanging for people. The other side is, like for me, when I watched it, I loved it, but I wasn't really into all the little details. I just kind of, man, that's too much to think about. I just kind of let it flow over you as you watch it, and you go, oh yeah, this is great. This is what it feels like. And I think for me, that ending was great.
Yeah.
You know, I think, I think it was, you know, I'm sure like everybody else, if you can think up of something else that they could have done that would have made it pleased everyone.
Well, it clearly would have been better if they had done the P.F. Chang's thing.
Yeah, see?
I mean, now that I know that, it changes my opinion entirely. No, I like the finale a lot also.
Yeah.
I was super into the mysteries personally,
Right.
but it was such a powerful way to wrap up the stories, I thought, that it was hard not to be satisfied by it. And I liked that they brought everyone back.
Yeah.
But I noticed, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the only time that you actually got a credit at the beginning of the episode? Because I think you went uncredited through most of the show, right?
That was a decision that was at the beginning when I got the role. For actors, agents negotiate their credits and their pay and whatever all that stuff is. And one of the things was getting the credit that my agent wanted. And they were negotiating with the producers and back and forth, and finally I said, you know what, let's the character is kind of a mystery, so let's say no credit, no nothing, just leave it at that, and then, you know, at the end you can put my name out there. So that's what the
okay. So that it was basically, so it's a surprise for people when you show up. Is that the idea, or
no? It was just I think kind of keep the mystery of the guy beyond the show, you know, the way the show.
I see.
So if you watch the show and you go, hey, that's a great character, I wonder who that person is, and you don't see his name or his credit anywhere. So you go, oh, that's weird.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so so hopefully by the end I was like, okay, at least put my name in there once.
I think you hopefully got the notoriety out of the show that you would want from it as an actor.
Yeah,
right?
by the time, you know, it didn't really matter if they knew my name or not. It's just,
yeah,
you know, I was on a flight somewhere. I was on a plane sitting, people were coming in, and people were saying, oh, hey, it's you. And this woman was coming in, and she goes, hey, you're Dr. Candle. And she was like, oh my God, well, you know, maybe I should get off this plane. And I said, well, no, it's okay, because I wasn't on the plane in the first place, so it's okay.
Right. The answer isn't it's a TV show, what are you worried about?
Right.
The answer is I wasn't on the
Right,
plane, so
exactly.
it's okay.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. You know, I have a listener who always wants us to ask our guests this, so I'll
Sure.
start to close out with this. Did you have a favorite Dharma station? Or I guess in your case that would be, did you have a favorite video that you did because you were doing the videos?
The second character, not Mark Wickmund.
Mark Wickmund, yeah.
It was very, I didn't have a lab coat. I looked very, I still had the turtleneck and the sort of tweedy 70s jacket.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what I was talking about, but you find out later all the VHS tapes that he was making, they just dumped it. There's a big pile of it.
Right, that it was all just a lie.
Right. I like that one because, I don't know, it was... that 70s vibe was great for me.
Yeah. I think you were wearing like a beige jacket.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I was like, it was...
You looked fancy as well.
I looked, you know... I looked like I don't know, I'm a big turtleneck guy, so I like wearing those turtlenecks.
That's fabulous. So what, is there anything, by the way, about Lost that they haven't asked that you think is people would want to know? Favorite moments or things that you did, stuff behind the scenes, anything of that nature?
No, I think most of it, you know, in terms of answering some of the questions of why, you know, these aliases and what he was doing and stuff, unless you're a true fan and you bought the DVD sets, it's like a DVD extra at the end not so much an extra. It was like an extra like episode that we shot.
That was for the finale of the last season, I
Right.
think. I remember this.
It's called
The New Man in Charge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sort of it shows him taking charge of the Dharma stuff, you know, and then there's scenes of Dr. Chang doing his weird psychedelic experiments on the hostiles that they
Right,
kidnapped.
that's where you explained the psychology and the Room 23
Right,
thing. Yeah.
And you get little tidbits of why they called him Hurley.
Oh, the bird.
Right.
There's the bird that screamed Hurley.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think they just added that in for the fans who were like,
It's been fun to get
give you some tidbits of
one more thing for you to do.
Yeah. That was great.
Oh, gosh. What, François, what are you working on now?
Right now, I was doing another sci-fi show called The Expanse. Season 3 is showing right now, and like last week they just Sci-Fi just canceled it.
Oh.
So now there's a huge like fans of The Expanse are, I bet you, as rabid as Lost fans, because they've been like mounting this sort of save the show thing for the last week, where they're tweeting like hoping to they're hoping to get like Netflix or Amazon to pick it up, kind of thing. So last week some fans did a GoFundMe thing where they got money and they hired a plane that flew over Amazon headquarters over in Santa Monica with a banner saying
"No way,
Save the Expanse," and they've been doing all sorts of stuff. So they're kind of in the midst of trying to get that renewed or whatever, go somewhere else. But it's a great show, and it's really, as a sci-fi fan myself, it's up there. It's not kind of surfacey laser guns and blah blah blah. It's packed with stuff, and it's really well done. So I was really proud and glad to be in that. And I was a bad guy again. So.
Well, that sounds really... it's funny. I did, when I put out a call for questions for you, I got a bunch of people who said, ask him this and that about The Expanse. I don't know anything about The Expanse. I'm sorry, I haven't seen it. But it sounds like it's something that I should...
Yeah. And the other thing is, since I'll plug my other show, The Tick, on Amazon. Yeah. We're shooting season 2 right now, but it's great. It's funny, and it's another one of those cult things. If you know anything about The Tick and you've been fans of The Tick, it's another one where the fans are just like, wow, from way back from the cartoon when it started, and then and then I think in the 90s they had a live action one with Patrick Warburton that lasted like one season, and then now we have another reincarnation of it. And it's pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, François Chau, you can see him on The Tick on Amazon. You can see him, perhaps, if someone, Netflix, Amazon, renews it on The Expanse. I hope that happens.
Thank you. So too.
Thanks very much for talking to us.
Oh,
really
you're very
appreciate
welcome.
it.
You're very welcome.
Well, we have to start, I think, with the remarkable idea that Pierre Chang might be himself P.F. Chang.
That's the most important part of that whole interview.
That's absolutely hysterical. And I hope so much that that's the sort of thing that François Chau just thought to himself once and kind of giggled at, and now repeats as a joke, and the rest of us get great joy out of.
If P.F. Chang's was good at social media, which for the record I don't know if they are or aren't, they could make a run with that. We
should tag them in some tweets.
We should. I guess it would have been better 10 years ago when Lost was on.
But we can try.
Any one thing that I love, by the way, is that he, when he said that people on airplanes, make jokes that they're nervous when he's there, and his response to that is exactly the same as Michael Emerson told us that his response is, look, I wasn't
not
even
like that's fiction. That's not canon.
Right, I wasn't on the plane.
Which is Yeah, hysterical.
Amazing.
Um,
I should mention, one more thing before we close it out here. Francois mentioned, during the conversation that there were efforts to get a streaming service to pick up a fourth season of his TV show, The Expanse.
yes.
We recorded that conversation in May. Shortly after we talked, it did in fact happen. Amazon picked up The Expanse, and they are currently making season 4.
Oh, a delight.
Yeah, so if you want to see more of Francois, that is where you do it.
I've not had the chance to watch that show, but it seems like it'd be very up my alley. I may give it a try.
So we'll be back next week. We'll be watching 3 Minutes. It is the second to last episode of Season 2. It is a Michael flashback.
Whew, and it's a doozy, but we will return to our interview with Henry Ian Cusick, who of course played Desmond.
And who, of course, returns to the island next week at the very end of the episode.
Oh, so looking forward to that.
And then we're going to close out the season with Live Together, Die Alone, and we'll have a conversation with Sonia Walger as well, who plays Penny and makes her introduction in that episode.
Ooh, and Sammy, you recently stated that might be your favorite Lost episode of all time.
I did. I'm going to find a way to maybe walk it back and make it a tie with something else, but we'll see how I feel after I watch it.
Sounds good. As always, you can interact with us and your fellow listeners on the internet. We are on Twitter at The Hatch Podcast and on Facebook.com/The Hatch Podcast.
Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or whatever app you use to listen to the show. It means a lot to us, and thank you to everyone, by the way, who has done that. There's some lovely reviews on there.
Our theme music is by Andy G. Cohen, and our cover art is by Danny Roth.
We'll see you next week.
Namaste.